welcome to the 40k Fireside Podcast, where we discuss everything to do with competitive Warhammer 40k with your hosts Vic VJ and David Gaylord.
Hey, and welcome everyone as I clicked the wrong scene. Good start. I'm here with my teammate, my friend Boris Michev, who just came third at the LGT. That's not your best performance, right? You've came second, I want to say?
At LGT, I came second once before, in a very different time. But
Yep.
in recent history, this is my best performance. Yeah.
Hell yeah, awesome. And a couple of years ago, you came best overall at Warhammer World Champs, at the first Warhammer World Champs as well. So Boris is probably one of the more esteemed players that you have never heard of. If you're like a wider audience listener that just keeps track of like the larger tournament scene kind of online. But Boris did very well with his Emperor's Children. And you've been playing Emperor's Children for like quite a long time, right, Boris? That's basically the only thing you've been playing since they came out, really?
This is not basically the only thing I've played since they came out. This is the only thing I've played since they came out. In fact, even before they came out, the last tournament before the book came out, I played the old Emperor's Children, where you can play the detachment, which is basically CSM with the old Lucius.
Yeah.
So, this year I've not played anything else.
Nice, awesome. So whenever we run through your list, from my perspective, I feel like all of the Emperor's Children lists like pretty much look exactly the same these days, but I'm keen to get your thoughts on like where the small parts, small changes are maybe from what other people play. So we've got 2 Winged Demon Princes with no enhancements, 3 Lord Exaltants with 3 Infractors, so like 3 Lord Squads, Lord Cacophonist, Lucius the Eternal, 2x5 Tormentors, which are the Infiltrate guys, 3x6 Noise Marines, 3 Flawless Blades, and 2 Rhinos. What kind of differentiates this from maybe like what other people have been playing recently, maybe at WTC, for example?
Yeah, unfortunately, given the internal balance of the book and the number of data sheets that are there, the relative point cost, this is outside Emperor Children is one of the factions with the least amount of viable list variety out of any faction. The list has basically been identical since the book came out, with some small variations. I think none of the small variations are that impactful. So, John Lennon's list at WTC had some Molar Fiends, which might be better in a team environment, depending on the matrix, and flawless blades have got a bit cheap, got a better rule recently, so testing them out. So I think the list has been pretty much 80 to 90% the same since the book came out, which is kind of a bummer because it leaves almost no place for innovation or creativity, and so this is basically what everyone plays. Until something changes with the internal balance of the book, this will be the list.
And what would you say like the play style of the army is? Is it tempo based? Is it kind of like control based, for example?
It is very unique. Even though there's other kind of pressure armies in the game, right? Like World Eaters and other armies that want to charge and get in the fit. I think Emperor Children is quite unique in its play style. There will be a turn in which we will send your entire army out, and I mean your entire army out. And you're going to try and do one devastating blow to your opponent. Your opponent is then going to retaliate and kill most of your army back because you're not resilient. But because of how your detachment works with the pledges, and because how the army works with fallback, advance, shoot, and charge, if you've executed that one turn well, usually what it means is that the drags of your army are so powerful now, and they're so fast and so flexible, and then you can win the game on the back of that. So I don't think there's quite another army in the game that operates with this game plan. It's quite unique, and that is the key of being good with Emperor Children is mastering that one turn.
Yeah, you sort of like invest early on to like get a lot of repayments later on, don't you? Like when you get 5 buffs, is 5 buffs you get crit 5s, real 1s to hit and wound? Is that correct?
5 buffs is real ones to hit and wound and sustain lethal in combat, and 7 makes the sustain lethal crit 5s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So once you get to 7, even the Rhino in combat is good, basically.
Yeah, the Rhino in combat with 7 buffs kills 5 aspects warriors. So, in combat, after it kills 5 in shooting. So
yeah, that's awesome. What were your thoughts about Emperor's Children coming into the meta? Were you feeling like pretty powerful about them? I know like we had them as one of the better armies in the game, like on the Fireside podcast, for example, because we thought knights were going to be a little bit less popular and the meta would be a little bit more wider instead of narrower. Were you feeling like okay going into it?
Yeah, I think. Well, there was 7 of us from our team that attended LGT, right? And those
Mm-hmm.
7 of us took 7 different factions,
Mm.
and all 7 of us went there trying to win the event. It's not like we just took something to go and have fun. What I'm trying to say is the meta felt so wide that you could take almost any faction if you're really good in practice with it and go there and compete. Um, and and therefore I felt like Emperor Children, with the amount of games that I played with, the amount of comfort, and also the success that I had with them, I thought were perfectly viable to go and compete at the LGT. There was almost no list or archetype that I thought is an auto loss. Uh,
Mm.
outside some extreme examples that we'll cover later on, but I felt quite confident that it can definitely compete.
Yeah, it doesn't auto lose against anything, but it doesn't auto win against anything really. You kind of have to match your skill on the table in the most part, don't you?
Yeah, which is what you want, really.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, I certainly felt that in my games as well. It was like, well, if I played badly, I would lose, but if I played well, I would have a good shot at winning, which is a great like standard for the game to be in right now.
yeah, and on our drive back on the Monday, we were chatting about it in my car, and we're like, would we have changed our faction with the benefit of hindsight? And I think most
Mm.
of us would have been extremely happy to just play exactly what we played,
Yeah.
even with the benefit of hindsight, which is usually not the case. Um, it,
Mm.
when the game is less balanced or when someone innovates at a tournament, the downside of the meta being so wide and so flat is that it's very little innovation happening out there uh,
Mm.
as far as list design and new archetypes. The game is very balanced, which is amazing, but there's very few curveballs that are being thrown out there.
Mm. Yeah, people are generally sticking to what they know, and I think people are like, for example, myself, I didn't want to go play Raven Guard, a because I wanted to paint my army as well and like kind of have a bit of a relaxing. Like, I didn't want to be spamming TTS games the week before the tournament. I was rather like I'd rather just like paint and then like be kind of fresh going into it. But like I didn't want to shift, for example, and I know a lot of people, everyone that I talked to was kind of like, well, I picked it because I was comfortable on the army, and yeah, I think that actually the one negative side to it being kind of balanced like that is that people don't move as much, I guess you could say, right? Because comfort is like quite a much more important factor now, which is it's like it's a downside to a very good to a very good part of the game now, which is good.
Yeah, but even within people's factions, even if they stay on comfort, I think even within factions, there isn't that much innovation that's going on right
Hmm.
now. I would say most factions are quote unquote solved, and there is one clear archetype or even specific list within the factions that's quite dominant. I think
Yeah.
Marines is kind of the one exception, as is always the case, because it's so wide and there's still quite a few different ways you can play Marines. But each one of the ways you play Marines, in and of itself, is quite well discovered so far.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. And I guess that nowadays, there's so many content creators and people playing as well, right? Like everyone knows all the lists and stuff like that. And
yeah,
Raven Guard only came out a while beforehand the tournament, and everyone was on more or less the same 1800 points. I think it came out like 3 weeks before the tournament, and everyone was on basically the same list.
I think it was literally 2,000 points on the nose that John Lennon's Raven Guard list was. Everyone who
Yeah.
played Raven Guard was exact, and the detachment came out like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, crazy, right? I mean, that's like so much different from like a couple of years ago, where you could have something that would really catch you off guard, or you hadn't played against it before, or like you'd be like, oh, this person's using this unit, for example. I personally thought like Ennis Wilson's list with the three Redemptors and the Thunderhawk, the Storm Raven, that
Yeah.
was like probably the most one out of left field and like one of the
Yes,
most innovative ones.
yes,
But that's obviously got like a really big skew element to it, and that was obviously based on Josh Roberts playing something similar in Stormlands earlier, and then we saw Redemptors go down. But that was kind of the list that I was like, oh, that's like the one curveball of the
yes.
tournament.
I
I
agree
think,
with that. But just to compare and contrast, the last time that I lost the LGT finals must have been, I don't know, 2019, 2020, long time
Mhm.
ago. There, just to compare and contrast of how we had 9 Eldar flyers, crazy stuff. But back then, you could, our old teammate Malik, that I played, I think, in round 4 then. his list at the time was like some custodians bikes and some guard tanks and some ultramarines infiltrators. That's the game 5 years ago, and look
Mm.
at the game now. And even though we're a lot more balanced, which is amazing, there's a lot less list variety and a lot less innovation. You turn
Yeah.
up to the table and say, "What are you playing?" I'm playing Black Templar Gladius, and you're like, "Okay, 90% I know what that is, right?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we played ETC 2 weeks beforehand, and I didn't see any way to change my list. I was just like, this seemed good. I'll just play exactly this. I couldn't really dig deep into like something else that would be really powerful, for example. Which yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's an interesting point. I wanted to stay on something comfortable as well. So why don't we crack into your run? Because we got some interesting pairings coming up here. So we got day one. Day one, you're playing against the mirror matchup, but you're playing Plaque-bound Zealots and Sweep Engagement Terraform. Anything super takeaway on this game?
No, Ben's a great friend. He's actually a great guy, friends with our teammate Brian. He came down from Scotland. He was playing Abaddon, a Land Raider, and Obliterators. So
Spicy.
not optimal into Emperor's Children. So it ended up being quite a one-sided game once we started rolling.
Nice. And round two, this is actually a bit of a funny story because you played Cults of Speed just beforehand, right? You played it like a couple of weeks ago and gotten absolutely smashed.
Yeah, I played against my friend Nick here in London, and with Codes of Speed, which is looks kind of like a meme army. It's 1,000 units. There's buggies and trucks and deathcopters and mechs and all sorts of weird and wonderful orc things, and it looks like it's a mountain of stuff. And I lost that game. So when this pairing came up, we were sitting together at the bleachers, and I was like, this is not that easy. But the problem the Code of Speed has is even though there's 1,000 things on the table, the damage output is incredibly unreliable and
Mm,
largely very low, and the
mm,
durability largely relies on a wound count. It just
yeah,
has a ton of wounds, but it's not particularly tough.
yeah.
Doesn't have great saves, and so once we started brawling, the damage output of the EC just picked up way
It,
too much of the orc army, and the clapback in return was not nearly as high as it needed to be. So
yeah. It must feel pretty good sending your whole army into a Cult of Speed army, and you're just like, oh baby, you don't like you. They're either getting 6-up saves or they're getting no saves against most of your attacks.
well, and it feels even better on their clapback because normally the clapback against EC for almost any other army feels horrific because you're gonna lose so much of your army. But when the Killer Speed starts shooting you and you smoke your Rhino and it takes the entire army that does not even kill your Rhino, you're like, okay, well, I'll have most of my army still intact. So
Yeah. Pledge 5. That's awesome. So, nice win against Cult of Speed there. And then finally, we've got the end of day one. What about this game here against John on... I looked it up, and he was playing Chaos Space Marines as well.
yeah, so John actually excellent player. I mean, obviously, once you're 2-0 and you get into the 3-0 bracket, it starts obviously getting harder. John is someone who had recently won one of the super majors in the UK. I think it was the
Oh,
first
nice.
major last year or earlier this year. And so, if someone's winning a 300-person event, they know what they're doing, right? They're a player. So, um, obviously, I know this matchup extremely well because CSM is one of my favorite factions, and I've played this army many, many times. I think anything that is a Space Marine or Chaos Space Marine army with 2-3 wound models tends to be very favorable to EC. My
Yeah.
entire army is made out of damage 3. Effectively,
Mhm.
I get 20 chosen into bricks of 10. Uh,
Mm.
and so I think I all in him turn 2, and I killed an entire Rhino plus the 10 chosen inside, some of the
Mhm.
scratch pieces, and then his clap back with the 3 tanks and the second brick was hard but not devastating. And then by turn 3, the game was over.
Mm.
It is just quite a favorable matchup for EC, and it's a matchup where I had a lot more experience into the CSM than he had with the CSM into the EC. So
Yep.
those things combined put me in a pretty favorable position. Great guy, great opponent. Um, but
I
pretty,
find it like on that note, I find it kind of tough to play into Emperor's Children sometimes when like you don't. It's kind of hard to just like get the tempo right, and you're kind of always worried about like you can kill what's in front of you, but then there's like always this Rhino with noise marines that when they're buffed up, like hit super hard and will disembark, advance, shoot something, charge somewhere else away from you and stuff like that. I always find that a little bit difficult personally.
You know, the tough thing is, this is not touting my own horn, but there aren't actually that many really, really good players playing Emperor's Children. It is one of the
Mm.
factions that we thought would be more popular coming out of the gates, but it's actually not been picked up by, too many
Yeah.
really, really good players. What that means is people don't have a lot of experience playing into it in the hands of a very good player. And so
Mm.
Emperor's Children is an army that it really, you could say this about any army, but it's particularly true about EC. As it is with Eldar, for example, if you have an exceptional pilot, the army can be really, really good. If you have
Mm.
not a very good pilot, it's not a very good army. And so,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, it was true at this tournament that didn't have the experience into EC, knowing the speed, the breakpoints, the damage, the tempo. It was a big advantage being the EC player.
Yeah, I can totally see that, and that's primarily because it's not really an army you can just bludgeon your opponent with.
No.
You have to really like take it and stage it carefully, and like be a little bit more. Was it Gork or Orc? I can't remember which one's the, the sneaky bit cunning one. Cunning but brutal one. Sorry. I found Black Templar's Gladius a lot like that too. Like you can't just kind of bludgeon someone because you're at the end of the day just playing like toughness 4, 3 wound Marines, and like every army in the game is stacked with damage 2 and 3 these days.
That's right.
Really have to play around your transports. So that was the end of day one. It's always nice when you end day one, 3-0. We all went out to dinner to grab some curry, of course, and we get the pairings. And round 4, you go into Clement, who is a local. If you don't know Clement, he's a very good player and a friend of both of ours. And he's been playing for a long time, and has been playing basically only plays Aeldari and kind of Space Wolves historically, but has been playing Aeldari a lot over the last couple of years, I would say, and he was playing Spirit Conclave, which is like a little bit out of left field, definitely as well. I think that's definitely like the third most popular one after Aspect Host, War Host, and then it's probably Spirit Conclave and Guardian Battle Host, for example. But yeah, this is a little bit of a tough pairing coming into round 4, right?
Well, actually, this is. I think this is switched around. I think round 4 was World Eaters,
Ah,
um,
okay.
but we'll keep the intro for Clan because everything you said is true, and it's that game 5. But maybe I'll cover round 4 quickly.
Yeah, go through round 4 then. Oops.
Yeah, so Charles from Team Siju, which is one of the up and coming teams in the UK that have performed really well at the most recent ITTs, consistently finishing, I think, in the top 3 spots, and
Mhm.
have some really, really good players there. So, very good World Eater player. It is a World Eaters versus Emperor's Children is one of those matchups that is greatly, greatly, greatly going to favor the person who is familiar with the matchup.
Yep.
Um, it is a combat mirror, but I also have some really good shooting, and
Mhm.
so um, I had way more. World Eaters is one of my armies that I play and love and know, and I played a practice game into Nikki, one of my sparring partners at the Bad Moon, and was quite familiar with the micro strategy, with the breakpoints of the damage, about his threat ranges, and so I was way more comfortable, I think, in the matchup going into it. I
Mhm.
also ended up going second, which I think in this particular matchup is really good.
It's always nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So we brawled in the middle. I killed him way faster than he killed me, and then the
Mhm.
game was over. Um,
Yeah.
there was a funny moment where he had a slaughter bomb with a glaive and some exoded aid bomb that charged the prince, didn't kill him, and then the prince picked up the entire squad back. Both of
Rough.
these things are not likely.
Yeah.
But sometimes in these combat mirrors, you get funny interactions like that
Yeah.
have pretty
For a
much.
bin van, you roll like 1 over what you should, and then you CP
Yeah,
reroll 1, it lives, and then that's the thing about Emperor's Children
yeah,
too, man. If you
he
don't
drops
kill these units,
5 damage and he misses one too many fire pin bombs, and then the unit's dead. So
yeah. And
yeah,
I feel like if you don't kill these Emperor's Children units, like the Demon Prince, for example, they obviously, like, their army rules just fall back, shoot, and charge, or
yeah.
whatever, right? So, fall back, activate their entire unit, which can be really devastating. So then, okay, round 4 is pretty cruisy then. And then round 5, going into Aeldari here, by the looks of it.
Yeah, so Clem, as you introduced him, he's a good friend of both of ours. He's one of our London players, Eldar, try hard, die hard fan. Um, he always likes to do things a bit differently.
Mhm.
Um, with Eldar, he's one that doesn't necessarily want to just jump on the latest, most broken meta list, and he just wants to do it his way, right?
Well, he did beat me playing Yanari, so that's
He has also been playing two Wraith Knights, so he has at times been tempted, as it were. But
yeah.
specifically here, and in his previous game, so round four, because obviously he was 4-0 coming into this, he had beat Guillaume from Team Belgium
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
like points or something with Spirit Conclave. So um, Clem is an excellent player. It was honestly one of my favorite games in a very long time.
Yeah.
It's always nice. You have LGT round five. You go against a friend, and you just
Mm.
know you're gonna have a great game. His army has a lot of tricks, and so it could be the kind of game that has a lot of gotcha moments. And if he didn't screen here, his army teleports, shoots really hard. He was such a gem and such a pleasure, and played the game in such a gentleman-like way that we had a great game. Ultimately, I think the jury is still out on this matchup, but I think the overwhelming view now is that Emperor Children is quite favored into Eldar unless
Yeah.
the Emperor Children make a critical error. His list was such that even though he had the 10 fire dragons that can teleport, once they teleport and shoot, they are there,
Mm.
right? They're not going back inside a wave serpent behind a wall, and so it is very difficult in this matchup for the fire dragons to get multiple activations because of how quick the Emperor's Children is. He drops 9 away, he shoots one thing really good with the fire dragons, and then he dies
Yeah.
because there's a squad that charges it from behind the wall. And in the first 1 to 3 turns, he was screening, move blocking, dancing around the table, but incrementally he kept going into his corner further and further because my threat ranges get closer and closer. And so at the end, his board position was such that he just could not score any points.
Yeah.
So
Fire dragons feel a little bit more fair when they're 220 points and you get to use them once, don't they?
I think he shot them once. They killed 4 or 5 noise marines, and then they died.
Yeah, yeah, and like I guess Emperor's Children against Aeldari in general, like once you get the buffs going, anything turns into something that could be critically lethal against their army, really, doesn't it? Like a Rhino shooting, for example, is just like easy.
Even without the buffs, you're critically lethal because your army is so good. But with the buffs, you could split and
Mm.
constantly kill multiple units a turn, which is just devastating. And because
Yeah.
you're so quick, you can catch them reliably.
Mm.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
great game, great opponent. It's a shame that one of us obviously had to take a loss there, but ultimately a matchup that felt quite favored, list to list, uh,
Mhm.
even if executed perfectly on Clem's side. So, yeah, 5-0.
Nice. So 5-0, that's always a nice achievement. I know a lot of people in the room. I don't know if you felt this, but you kind of get this feeling like the round 5 is really critical for a lot of people. It's kind of where a lot of people like either make or break their goals. You get a lot of people going, went 4-1, they're like super happy, and then you get this kind of subset of people that, yeah, went 5-0 for the first time, and there's kind of like this elation in the room, and then disappointment in the room after round 5,
Yeah.
and usually like the elated people are down towards the end of the end of the hall, chilling out, 5-0, and then the other people are sort of like, in the middle, packing up their stuff and everything, and it's kind of a beautiful thing to see, I think, a lot of times. Like, it really reflects the tournament. You're like, yeah, it's kind of like a jubilee in some sense. Like, a lot of people like, yeah, went 5-0, or people are really happy to go 4-1, for example, and you get people, yeah, I went 3-2, and that's kind of the summation point of the tournament that separates the vast majority of people from the rest of the competitors that will continue playing, right?
Yeah, that's true. Also, at the same time, they start announcing the awards for best
Mm.
infections and painting awards, and best in bracket. While you are now starting to set up your table and terrain for your round 6. So
Mm.
there's
Yep.
this at the end of the hall. So there's this like weird thing going on where there's 30 or so people left that are like setting up round 6, and
Mhm.
there's 1,500 people that are attending the award ceremony.
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. I love that. So round 6, and I feel like you might have been a bit nervous into this one because I doubt that you'd played into AdMech going into this one because AdMech recently had a lot of buffs. For those that don't know, Boris almost exclusively just plays in real life, right? Like down at Moon Café. Boris is the co-founder and part owner of Moon Café in London. Check them out in Bermondsey, a new shop in Holloway Road, where we're having the Fireside RTT on the 9th of November. Hell yeah, baby. I mean, it's a great cafe. Me, Boris, Brian, Sipe, my teammate Lewis Smith, who have been on the pod many times. Like, we all live in that same area, so that's kind of like our place we go and play. But I kind of doubted that you'd played against AdMech before or after their new buffs, right? So were you kind of thinking like, man, this is like a bit of a rough one? And sweeping engagement can create some like angles which, you know, you can get shot on turn one, and it's pretty close quarters, right?
Yeah, 100. Everything you said is true. And also, going into it, some of the Team England applicants had picked up the new AdMech, and so there was a lot of
Mm.
discussion in the Team England discourse. And I saw some of these lists, and I was actually thinking like, wow, I think AdMech could be quite tough for EC.
Mm.
I'd obviously never played it. So Richard is the captain of Team Denmark,
Mm.
WTC. Clearly, he's gone 5-0. He's a WTC team captain.
Yeah.
You know, he knows what he's doing.
Is this Richard Grint, by the way?
Yeah, Richard Grint. Yeah.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, great guy. Oh, what a gem. I mean, I could say this about all 8-9 opponents that I had this weekend, but Richard, fantastic guy. His list was quite different though. His detachment, I don't know. I don't think many other people are playing Halo's Creed.
Yeah, it's I'll correct you. It's about a 50-50 split between Halo's Creed and Skatari Hunter cohort. I would actually say that Halo's Creed now is kind of the more popular one, so to speak. It just gives you a bit more range with the Rust Stalkers.
Yeah, I mean, when he told me how fast these guys move, I was like, what? It's like
Yeah.
move, 8-inch move, 10 out of the transport 3 can advance in charge. But he was playing a list that had 2 tanks, 4 chickens, a unit of birds, and then the rest was infantry, combat infantry, very fast combat infantry, and obviously call. And so we had an absolutely bloody game. His turn 1, bottom of 1, he charged my home objective.
With the Rusties.
Yeah, and I was like, what is happening? Like, so we had a very, very, very bloody game. And actually, he kills me pretty good, but I kill him really, really, really good. And so what happened is, when he connected with the Rustalkers in combat, he would leave a flawless blade on 1 wound and a lord on 2 wounds. And then in his turn, my unit swinging back would kill most of the unit in the action. And so I don't know if that's what the math is supposed to say, but it felt like even though he was very quick, he was even less durable than I am, and his damage output was lower than mine was.
Yeah.
So
Halo's Creed gets the advance and charge and fallback shoot and charge,
yes,
but they don't get the reactive move or the 5-up feel no pain, which is quite big on some of their 2 wound models, which is why some people kind of prefer. Sorry. Oh, maybe they do have the reactive move as well, but they crucially don't have the 5-up feel no pain, which is why some people like the Skatari Hunter cohort. But yeah, if you don't have the 5-up feel no pain, in almost any damage 2 stuff, regardless of the AP, can really shred these units very fast, I've found.
oh yeah. I mean, a lord squad into the Rustalkers, even though there's a 5-up invuln, which sometimes can scam you. I think Noise Marines felt incredible in this into the toughness 3 2 wound bodies. The lords felt amazing. The demon princes, the demon princes, the moment they show themselves, they just die to he had
The
us
chickens.
for crit 5s.
Mhm.
Last chickens with full rerolls to hit and full rerolls to win wound. So
Yeah.
okay, my demon princes, the moment they show themselves, they will die in one.
It's an amazing like point and click unit, that one I found.
Yeah, point and click. It's not durable, but it can shoot from very long with full efficiency. So yeah, it was a very bloody game. It was basically over by turn 2, I think. Maybe he charged me, I charged him. There was very little strategical macro. He had made up his mind that he's going to go super aggro. And when someone goes super aggro in temperature, you have no option but to go super aggro in return. And so it wasn't like a hugely tactical, strategic game. It was just a bloodbath. And EC.
Yeah. Hell yeah, get on the middle. So that's round 6, and then we've got round 7, which is the first round of the Shadow round.
Yes.
You didn't send me your round 7, so who did you end up
So
playing?
you know what my round 7 was?
Who was your? Oh no, I don't. Who was your round 7?
It was our teammate and good friend Brian.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, of course. That's why you didn't send me around 7. I can't believe I forgot that. Should I tell the story, I guess?
Yeah,
If
go ahead.
Sure. Maybe I'll put a clip of it, like, in this part here. But, you know, I think it's fair to say that, like, a lot of people in our team, but particularly probably you and Brian, were kind of ambivalent as to whether or not you ended up making the top 8, and then you both ended up playing each other. You both were kind of the opinion, like, it wouldn't be a bad thing if you just kind of went home early and had a nice day, took Monday off, like you both had, obviously you've got your family, Brian's got friends over, Olivier was staying with him. And then so the quickest way to decide this was to obviously roll off on a 4+ to see who won the entire game. So there was a bunch of our friends around. Boris and Brian rolled off first to see who would do the roll off, because only one person would be rolling the dice. And then I'll post it up here above Boris right now. Boris then rolled off, rolling the same dice, Emperor's Children, the Slanesh dice, rolling the 6 on a 4-up.
Boris, how are you feeling about this roll, man?
I feel really
This
good.
is a 4-up.
Slanesh is with me, Fulgrim is with me. I won the first roll off.
Don't you want me to run it again?
To then win the game effectively on the spot. So that must have been good because you both won. You both got to go home, and then you obviously got to go home with the dub. So that was a good way. And I think, like, one thing, like, aside from the games and runs, it just goes to show, like, the sub stories that you don't hear about if you're not at the event, but also like the fun that people have despite it being like one of the most competitive events in the world, right? Like, people are still human beings at the end of the day. They still want to like value, okay, going home, like I've just had my daughter. I was also like, man, keen to get back or something, right? And I think that really is exemplified on our team, like Team Ignite, where we're all like to play like that, love to play the game. We love to play and compete, but at the end of the day, having fun is like a huge part of why we ultimately play as well. And like, that's a memory that you'll have forever. It's certainly something I'll remember for a long time. Oh, I think your microphone is cut off here, Brian. Boris, but
Oh, yes.
there we go. You're back.
Oh, sorry. It will. Yeah, it's exactly as you said. It will go down as my favorite, memory in 40K. And I, you nailed it on the head there. Remembering what we're doing here is very important. With this game, with this hobby, with these tournaments, I think being grounded and remembering to have fun and share moments with your friends on the table, outside the table is very important. Brian had agreed from the previous round, if we get paired, we'll just roll off and have a good time. And
Yeah.
neither one of us blinked. As soon as we got paired, it's not like Brian. By the way, just to be clear, Brian was quite favored into this
Yeah.
match. But no one was blinked. We just immediately like, okay, where should we roll off? And we just walked over to the table. No one is like, but top 8 is on the line now. And it's like, and it was, I mean, you and Nassim and some of our other friends, that people are visibly stressed. It's like, are you guys really rolling off for who's going to make it to the top 8? And we're both like, yeah, let's top 8, small 8. So I think that is, by the way, I think it's important here because I'm sure some keyboard warrior on Reddit is going to have a fit here about rolling off for a game. But I
Yeah.
think in the Swiss stage of the tournament, in the 5 rounds, you should not do this. I think this discredits the integrity of the tournament. It's not fair to other players. I think you should play your games. Obviously, if someone wants to concede a game for whatever reason, you're entitled to concede a game. But I think it's very different when you get to like Shadow Round 8 and it's night and you might not even be able to play on the Monday. I think, remember when we went to Warhammer Fest, I made top 8 with my World Eaters and I went and told Mike, I can't play tomorrow. I have working kids. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Right? That's just part of these 3-day events with the Monday. So I would not advocate rolling off with your friends, round 5 in a GT to see who wins the event. I think that's not good for the integrity of the game. But in these shadow rounds towards the end, multiple people who went 5-0, 6-0 can usually come on the next day anyway. So, choosing to concede one of those games, I don't think it's unethical in the context of competitive 40K. So,
No, not at all. Yeah, it's not as if you're rolling off in the final game for LGT or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's between two good friends. It was a great thing to see. I was grateful that I was there to enjoy it, and it just goes to show, like, I think you nailed it on the head. Like, the pivotal point there on the summary of the game is that you guys had agreed before the pairing, and neither one of you blinked once you got paired on doing it, despite Brian being obviously an excellent player and quite good and knows the matchup, practice against John Lennon for WTC, and still agreeing to just the straight up 4-up.
Been having 2 battle wagons and 25 flash kits.
Yeah.
You know,
it was going to be a lot to chew through.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's absolutely excellent. So come Monday, you're back in the hall again, and you get your pairing the night before. You get Paul Neuenberger. Sorry, I'm probably butchered your name, Paul. I apologize. I'm from the Southern Hemisphere. This is the Raven Guard. This is like one of the, I guess, this is like the new list at the tournament, so to speak, right?
Yep.
How are you feeling about this one? Because like this list is pretty good on these boards, which are admittedly quite open from strat reserve to long range shooting, I would say.
So I had not played against it. I know that this was the new boogie list. My friend and teammate Nassim had been playing it a lot, and John Lennon, who is a good friend and someone I talked to about this a lot, plays it and is very good. And so I got some advice from John about how to play this matchup and what to look out for and what the macro plays are. But ultimately, this was quite an unfavorable matchup. I think the damage output of that list into Marines from with impunity, from 36 inches away and teleporting around the board is insanely high. And if piloted well, I think you cannot play 4 or 5 turns of Warhammer with this list because they will just kill you and outscore you in the process. And so you have to look for little, did he deploy a little bit too disrespectful? Can you rush him on early? Or did he reserve a bit too much and you went first, so therefore you can just shove your whole army forward and capitalize on that? And so there were different permutations that could have gone here, but ultimately what happened was quite strange because I went first, I staged my army, and then on the bottom of one, by the way, Paul is a world champion, member of Team France, right? Who had, as he told me after that, had just had 720-0s in this event.
Right, yeah.
Games where he had won 20. So just setting the scene that this is this is one of the best players in the world on one of the best lists in the world. So, but he decided to all in me turn 1 at the bottom. So he free rapid ingress 10 Vanguard vets. He moved the Shrike 10 Van vet unit, and he deep struck. He picked up and deep struck his 6 plasma inceptors. Everything looking at my expansion objective with a Rhino that had 2 units inside, and the plan is off the Rhino, plasma inceptor to dead, charge both units inside with a 10 van, the 20 van, but kill both units, game over, right? So he didn't kill the Rhino. And I think the actual math, the average is that he does about half a damage to the Rhino, I think, which already tells you that this is a very risky play.
Yeah. Basically, to set the scene, guys, Raven Guard will more or less table every single army on these boards by like turn 4, definitely by turn 5, unless you have like somehow a good plan against them. And then so to use your resources so aggressively so early in the game is one of the few ways which you can end up in a bad position like with this army. And what Boris is saying is like, Boris basically had, was it 6 Noise Marines and a Lord squad in the Rhino?
Yeah.
Up on his expansion objective, Paul dropped his 6 Inceptors, oath the moment the Rhino, and probably used +1 ballistic skill, +1 AP, I presume, right?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, and then shot the Rhino with the Plasma Inceptors, which are hitting on 3s with 4 rerolls, and then wounding on 5s with 4 rerolls.
Yes.
So, it's going to be at best an average of 6 wounds through on the Rhino with
I have
the
AOC and cover, and I take 4-up saves.
Yeah, which is definitely an aggressive line to take. And the pro to that would be, the good part would be that he would then get to charge Boris's 6 Noise Marines and the Lord squad that are both battle shocked, so you can't use any strats to interrupt, and then kill them with 10 Vanguard vets, which would be obviously like probably a detrimental, thing if it happened on turn 1, I presume, right?
If he pulls it off, I think the game is over.
Yeah.
I think he then has 20 Van Vets on my expansion objective, the Plasma Inceptors that I cannot interact with, and then the rest of his army is still free, not interactable, ready to drop down and kill me. I think, because we obviously talked about it a lot after the game, I think if he had delivered the blow, he would have ended the game, which is why he did it. He said he was doing it from a WTC type of perspective where he's going for a big, massive win. and get a 20-0, which, in a singles event, is obviously risky because if
Yeah.
it backfires, I thought when it backfired, I thought the game is over, meaning like this is a huge advantage for me. Um, the reality is, the way the game went, the game wasn't over, and he could have still won because his damage output from the 6 cents, 3 cents, the bolter inceptors, the plasma inceptors is still so high that he still pretty much tabled me, even with that blunder. But I think I killed all 20 Van Vets in turn two, and I think most of the plasma inceptor squad with some long charges, some lucky shooting. Um, and then at that stage, he had lost his entire board presence because the Sens can teleport and kill you real good, but like what's actually scoring the points at that stage?
Yeah.
The Van
They
Vet,
can't deep strike onto an objective, which is critical.
correct, can never deep strike onto an objective because they have to come off a board edge. The Van Vets are the part of the list that allows you to play the game in the mid board while you shoot them real good from the sides. And he had lost that turn two before he had his turn two. So I think in the end ended up being a pretty devastating loss. But he was a really, really, really good opponent. He gave me a massive take back, um, you know, with positioning some units that I had mispositioned, and he was a gentleman about it. And, he admitted, he, had his head in his hands when the Rhino didn't die. And I was like, but he knew that the game isn't over, whereas I thought the game was over. Because he knew his army better than I knew his army. So he told me, I was like, no one's ever killed 20 Van Vets in one turn. So he
Yeah.
thought that he would still have it, but I definitely killed 20 Van Vets in one turn. So, yeah, great game.
Spicy one.
Yeah, but into the top four now.
Yeah, top four. So you obviously peer into the top four and then play our teammate Liam VSL, which was an excellent game. I was bowing out at this time, so I was actually doing the commentary of the deployment zone, especially because I played against Liam many times beforehand on this basically exact same list. So what were your thoughts going into the game? Like, obviously you're playing against Liam, but have you ever played against Liam before in real life, like in a tournament setting?
My first ever game in real life or online or anyway, which is obviously we've been teammates for years. But as you said, I don't really play much TTS outside of WC season prep, and then I usually am not playing against Liam, who's in another WC team. So we've never played before. But out of the three, this is the pairing that I wanted for the semifinal because obviously it's Liam. The two-time returning LGT champion and probably, well, not probably, and the best player in the world.
Yep.
But if you take the name off and you just look at the list, like Ines' list was, I had no business playing. That was horrendous.
Yep.
You know, 2-up save, -1 damage, armor of contempt, whole spam. No. And then Sako playing Jukari was incredibly confident in the Emperor Children matchup, and it played it a lot, and was just destroying people. And so he was taunting me throughout the tournament, saying like, if we play." And so, whereas Liam's list, first of all, Liam's list was not. Let's just face it, it's not a good list. It's obviously he won LGT, so at some level it's a good list, but it's not. It's as Vic code. It's like a pick and mix. It looks like.
No, hard disagree. Hard disagree.
Do you just-
It's a brilliant list. It's actually a brilliant list. I can say that because I interviewed him last night. But I've played against this list so many times, so I kind of understand like what the roles for each thing are. But it doesn't. It's kind of like it's a lot similar to Black Templars Gladius. It doesn't auto win, but it doesn't auto lose, and that puts a position of someone who knows the macro strategy in a position where they can play any game, which I think is something that Liam quite enjoys.
Okay, I'll rephrase that. Obviously, it's not a bad list, but what I mean by that, you look at the list and it's like, here's a Rhino and a Marine squad, and you can play that. There's nothing in there that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't kill 3 Redemptors with -1 damage and a plane that's gonna shoot me from behind the wall. And on top of that, it's my favorite army that I've played with and against a million times.
Yep. it's so well rounded that it could be a narrative list if you turned up at a narrative tournament. You know, I've got my 10 Wop Talons, I've got my 1 unit of Nemesis Claws. I've got
Literally some tanks and transport. And by the way, and as I said earlier, like a CSM list like that is usually favored for EC, which is why I thought I could definitely play against that. The other two lists I didn't want. We can leave that
Yep.
for the final when anything can happen. So I was quite happy with the pairing, all things considered. And so yeah, so we deployed and rolled off, and he went first, which is even better for me. It's Lynch
Yeah.
going second. He's
What was your kind of overall macro like thoughts going into the game? Do you think like
so
you know?
what I wanted to do, especially when I went second, is what I wanted to do is I wanted to play conservatively. I had ways to keep my expansion objective pretty safe. I have Lucius, who is alone up. I can sit him behind at the edge of the objective. I can create some move blocks to buy some space, and I can score my eights quite comfortably. And even if he scores eights, at bottom of turn at some point, he's gonna have to all in me. I will then kill him, and then I'll have bottom of turn, and then he'll be fine, right? That was the macro strategy, and I felt very confident with that. The problem is when I drew my turn one cards, I I was baited by the cards to kind of abandon the strategy a little bit. Okay, so you have the picture there of our
Should I go to your turn one?
yeah.
Here we go.
So where Liam's expansion objective is, where my Rhino currently sits, he had put 5 Marines there and a Lord, and put the Rhino 9 inches behind his red Rhino in that wall, which he had done all tournament long.
Yep.
And if you come within 6 of my unit or 9 of my unit, I'm going to reactive 6 back into my Rhino, and so I'll get a unit for free. If you try, otherwise I'll score my primary. The problem is I drew secure no man's land and tempting target. Okay. And then I said, okay, so I could, if I go for this, I will deny him 5 primary. I'm going to score 5 for tempting target, that's 10. Another 3 for the second secure, that's 13 points. And I will wrap his Rhino in the ruin, taking that unit out of the game for at least 1 turn, buying his space on that flank. So at that stage, I was like, okay, that is enticing enough. I will do that, right? I send the Lord Squad out. He reactive moved. I then charged the Rhino. I used my reroll hit strat to reroll successes into failures to not kill the Rhino. And the Rhino lived on 2 wounds.
Nice.
And then I trapped his Rhino. I scored my tempting. I scored my secure. I had given him a 3. And I was, if you see where Lucius is on the bottom, I'd guaranteed myself an 8.
Because
Because
down here. You also have the move block with your infractors, are they? Or tormentors, sorry.
my Tormentor squad, yeah.
Yep.
I was feeling pretty good at that stage. I'd given myself an 8. I had a 10-point secondary term. I'd put him down to a 3. I was off to a huge points lead. And the way where my rest of my army was, he could not hit me in his turn 2. He could kill the Lord squad, the Infractor squad, the Rhino, maybe the Demon Prince if he sent the entire Chosen Brit, but even that's no guarantee. And then I thought, I'll then have my reserves, all my units coming out of the Rhinos. I will then hit him really hard. So I felt really, really good at that stage. He then killed everything in front of him. He killed the Lord Squad, he killed the Rhino, he killed the Tormentors, he charged the Demon Prince, left it on 2 wounds. And then I felt even better because I was like, okay, I'll pick up the Bio Brick for free, I'll kill both tanks, and then he's just down basically to his reserves and some scraps, classic Liam scrap of Bike Squad and Nemesis Squad, Cypher, etc. And this is what happened. I killed both tanks, both predators. I killed the Biobrick. And so what I underestimated was how devastating his turn 3 all-in would be. I thought by killing both predators and the Biobrick, I would have taken away not most of it, but significant amount of his offensive firepower, so that the clapback would not be terminal. But the clapback was terminal. The dropped in 1 tap the Demon Prince, the Noise Marine shot, the Bike shot, Cypher shot. Then the Lord.
It's kind of crazy, like when you actually realize, sorry, like the bikes and Cypher shooting can actually kill like a lot of stuff when you put sustain on it too, and you're like, oh my god. And then they get into combat, have like 1 power fist on the bikes, and then they have like 4 power fist attacks on Cypher or something, you know, and all get sustained, and then all of a sudden you're taking like 4 power fist saves, and you're like, wait, what? This is way more than I thought I was gonna take.
So he did. This is not a comment about dice rolls because dice rolls had no impact on this game. I think the dice rolls were completely within the realm of average either way. But what I totally underestimated was the combined output of the remainder of his army. Now, even then, there were some swing moments where, like, um, his rope talons could have been stuck there if they failed to kill. He obviously executed the positioning really well. Um, but even then, even after his blow was pretty devastating, I still didn't think I was completely out of the game because I had a massive points lead at that time. I had like a 25 points lead because he had drawn 2 turns of dud secondaries and I had drawn 2 turns of good secondaries and I had 2 8s and he had 2 3s. So I was, I think, maybe 27 points up or something like that. And I still had the scraps of my army. And usually the scraps of my army are really, really good. Um, the problem is the warp talons were in the sky, and when you're running so low on resources, the warp talons will then win the game because they'll rapid rest behind you, and they'll take your home objective on linchpin and kill something. And so, um, I lost the game turn one when I sent that Lord squad to go wrap that Rhino. If I had an extra Lord squad, right? I made 2 big mistakes in the game. One was sending the Lord Squad out turn one. If I had an extra Lord Squad, I think I'll probably win the game. One extra resource of that damage when it was scraps versus scraps would have been tremendous, right? Because when you have scraps versus scraps, if you have 1 power resource less that picks up a bunch of scraps and then the scraps can't deal with it, that is a huge swing. So if I just ditch tempting target, get my CP, get the small secure, still guarantee my 8, keep another Lord squad, huge change because I don't lose the Rhino, I don't lose the Lord squad, and that is massive.
And
Okay.
the rhinos are really big if, like, for example, if if they kill it, if they don't completely kill a unit, you can always fall back that unit into your rhino and then take a turn off and then disembark it like somewhere else on the board later on to maybe like go kill another unit that you didn't quite kill and stuff. And yeah, when you're talking about a lord that has both buffs, like that's a lot of damage.
There's a lot of damage, especially when he's fighting scraps at that stage. And the other big mistake is I deep struck a Demon Prince. I've never done this in any of my games. I deep struck a Demon Prince in my turn 2, kind of a little bit out of the way, but close enough to where he could be involved in my turn 3 to force him to dedicate some of his damage into him, to act as a sponge basically because he's got AOC, he's -1 damage, he's 10 wounds, he's not easy to kill. He's one of the toughest thing in my army. And so I deep struck him kind of on the top away from his expansion objective, making it not easy for him to interact with him. Um, he ended up one-tapping it with a unit of a blitz, which is not that likely, but it's not crazy unlikely. If I had kept him and rapid ingressed him, and I had an alive Demon Prince ready to tango, I think I win the game. So
Yeah,
those two
it's
things-
interesting, like
Yeah.
especially on linchpin as well. Like you've got the when you leave him in rapid ingress,
Yeah.
it forces them to screen their backfield and they can't play as aggressive into
He
you.
had nothing in the backfield. He had cultists that he had moved off his home objective. I could have literally deep struck him on his home objective. If I obviously he wouldn't have done that, but there was nothing other than the cultists, is what I mean.
Yeah.
Because he's his whole army forward. So I think if I don't send the Lord Squad and if I don't deep strike the Deep Prince, I think I almost certainly have a real path to victory. If I don't do one of them, I still think I'm in a good enough spot to where the game is very close. The game was still very close, even with those 2 big critical errors.
Yeah.
But that's how EC is. If you make an error like that and if you overcommit, you're so short on resources that you are not going to recover.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And obviously, playing against Liam's a great experience as well, right? So like, you guys can check out the stream on War Games Live, of course. I would definitely encourage you to do so. I think it's just like an excellent thing to watch in terms of like how to play CSM, but how to play EC as well, and sorry, how to play the game as well as to two great sporting people from our
Oh,
team playing for the top.
I mean, it's as you would expect, but two friends playing in a final at LGT, but he's just such a probably
Yeah.
one of my favorite. I've lost in the last two big events that I went to was Worlds and LGT, and I lost to John Lennon and Liam, and in both cases, I think it's my favorite thing going to these finals and just playing against these, the two best players in the world and losing, but like coming out of it is like, oh, that was such a delight playing
Yeah.
this guy. Oh, what a gent, what a
Just as if you're playing like at the
like,
local Bad Moon, you know?
yeah. I was like, Liam, did I roll enough on the charts to rub that right up? You can move my models. You tell
Yeah.
me if I rolled enough or two, and he was like, oh, maybe if you move here and you do this, yeah, you just position. That's the kind of game that we play.
Yeah. Excellent. You know, I had an interesting statistic from the head judge was that they only had 4, maybe 5 sportsmanship calls throughout the entire event across 1,100 players, which I think just shows the caliber of players and sportsmanship that we have in like the UK and EU, you know?
Yeah.
That's like unheard of, you know, that's 0.001% of games, total games that get played, which is crazy.
I think in that respect, I think in both in terms of the balance of the game on the table and the quality of the sportsmanship above the table is both are at an all-time high in my
Mhm.
7 years of playing competitive 40K,
Nice.
and both by a large margin. I mean,
Yeah.
a large margin. And so I had a spicy gotcha
Oh,
against him that I could have pulled off turn one, where he put that squad behind that wall with the reactive move.
mhm.
If I rolled a high enough advance in my Lord squad, I could surround him, where he physically cannot do that.
Mhm.
And then when it came to my turn, and I was like, "Oh, Liam, if I roll pretty good here, I can block you," and we moved his unit,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
because his entire thing is that. And I'm thinking like, a few years ago, if I was playing final of LGT, would somebody have let me do that, move my units back again? I would hope so, but not everyone that would have
Yeah.
been there at the time would have done that, right?
Yeah.
So
It's cool. It's cool that there's so much empathy, you know, and I think that's the real driving force here. There's so much empathy between players that we're all here taking time off to come and play, and we've got things going on in our lives too. And it's like game 10 or game 9 of a 4-day extravaganza, and everyone's tired. Like if we wanted to like if someone wanted to be an asshole, they could be an asshole, right? But everyone just understands like that's no way to play, because if you do it to someone, someone will do it to you, and everyone makes mistakes. Like I make mistakes, I misposition something, my opponents do, and we just go, hey, just move it. Like who cares, you know? Because for every time you do something, something will happen to you as well, and that's a big part. And I think the biggest contributor to that has been like top players. Obviously, I think streaming has been the biggest contributor to that. Displaying the sportsmanship of what happens at these final games, and these big tournaments. And I think that's like a huge part of positivity, I think, coming into the game. At least in the game over the how long have I been? I've been playing 4 years, I think now. That I've noticed a remarkable difference in that as well, which is really awesome to see for the game.
yeah.
Thoroughly enjoyable.
Well,
There we go.
I'm also twice Liam's age,
Yes.
which shows both his age and my age. And like at some point, you know, you have to have the maturity and the self awareness to be, you know, we're not gonna do anything funny here.
Yeah.
It is, we're friends, we're teammates, but also like, come on,
Yeah, for sure. And like everyone knows each other, of course, as well, which makes it like I think it makes it more enjoyable as well, you know, because everyone plays each other. You know, we see each other again at WTC, for example, or whatever, right? Which is the best part. There we
Well,
go.
there is, if you look at the top eight, right, and just the names of the players over there, we talk about it's an 1,100 person event. The path really matters. You could get unlucky, but you look at that list. David Gaylord, Liam VSL, Sacco, Ines, Paul Newberger. Like, if I told you to put the 8 people before the tournament start, you would have had 5 or 6 of these guys on your list, probably, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
definitely.
I thought that was quite cool that, like, despite everything else, despite how balanced the game is, despite luck and path and shadow rounds, like the best players kind of rise to the top, even in
Hmm.
that situation, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool if you look at the armies which people played. I think a lot of them were like, I think a lot of armies that people played were armies which they could play against a lot of things, which I think is really cool as well. You know, like Raven Guard, Black Templars, Emperor's Children, CSM, like Drakari. No one really had these kind of like skewy lists apart from the 6th graded demons, which I think like lost when they played the top 8. But you know, that list, like a lot of us played lists which didn't really depend on the pairing as much, which I thought was a really cool state of the game to play as well. Meaning that everyone came in thinking that if they're the better at play at the table, they could probably win, which is you know, great. It's just a testament to how good the game is nowadays. Awesome. Boris, have you got any like shout outs you want to give? Any you know, anyone you want to say thanks to or anything?
Well, I want to thank Brian above all else for rolling low on the roll off and creating a special moment. But no, I will say in closing, I think Zach, who is the TO of all the UKC events, you know, a few years ago, he was like the butt of all jokes on the internet with the shambolic LGT and everything else. And I think what he's done over the last few years with the UKC circuit has been amazing. But this event in particular, I thought was such a good event, right? If you think about like organization, sportsmanship, vibe, etc., I just, you know, it was one of my favorite events. Obviously, it helps that I did well. I think if I had busted out round 2, maybe wouldn't be so happy. But I think it was a great event. You know, the biggest shout out is to the 40K community, which the amount of friendliness and just people. I know you get that because of your content. I get a little bit of that because of Team England, where I'm trying to help in more of a leadership capacity this year. But the amount of people coming up, saying hello, saying nice words, you know, asking for help or advice or just being friendly, I thought that was amazing. And there was just so much positivity, like so many other kind of nerdy games like Magic or
Yeah.
I don't know, some other stuff. They usually have a lot of toxicity in the community, but I didn't feel any of that. On the contrary, like it felt like such a major love where everyone just is there to have a good time, be nice, be respectful. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. It's the beautiful game. It's the best game.
Beautiful game.
It's Warhammer. There we go. Awesome. Thank you very much for coming on, Boris. It's an epic run with Emperor's Children. Like we said, if you're a London-based player and you somehow don't play at Bad Moon Café, I don't really know if you've been living under a rock, but it's the best place to play 40k, and they've got a new shop at Holloway Road. If you're in North London, so go and book a table there and play. They've got lots of like startup leagues and stuff like that, and great friendly people around everywhere. So there we go. Thank you, Boris.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for the kind words.
Thank you for listening to the 40k Fireside. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, drop us a comment, check out the YouTube members area, and we look forward to seeing you again next time by the Fireside.